What's going on, guys? Three Amigos podcast. Just Chris here today, and we're talking about the Pokemon Direct, which was really interesting. Now, I'm not really going to talk about the entire thing because I think a lot of us are really just here to discuss the final announcement, which was Pokemon Legends Z, Z-A, something like that. And going into this presentation, there had been a lot of rumors and probably hopes that we were going to get something Gen 2 or Gen 5 related, and instead, Game Freak Pokemon threw a huge curveball at everybody and gave us Gen 6, which is, for me, kind of bittersweet. Mostly because I love the Legends Arceus game, but I am not a fan of Kalos. My least favorite gen is probably between 6 and 7, and I'm like very torn. I think the trailer was interesting because can't really figure out if this is in the past or the future because the Pokemon has kind of been messing around with both of those ideas lately. Um, and if it's in the past, maybe that makes Gen 6 a little more interesting. It's in the future. I guess, I'm kind of torn on the whole robot Pokemon thing. Um, but I definitely didn't expect this. It's funny because years ago, when X and Y came out, there was all this talk about how they had planned on doing a Pokemon Z, and it just never happened. And so it is kind of funny to see them double back and finally make Pokemon Z all these years later. But I think what's tough, and this is, partially my own fault. So before put your pitchforks down, Pokemon fans, this is my own fault. I talked myself into something Gen 2 related, Let's Go Johto, something like that, or my God, Legends Celebi, or whatever. Or Gen 5 remakes, which I will say I think could still be happening later this year. I would be very surprised if they don't release, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl style remakes from Ilka or whatever, which it's not how I would have liked to get Gen 5 content, but there's a good chance that's what happens because it seems really unlikely that they would just straight up skip Gen 5 and go right to Gen 6. I didn't see anything in this trailer that hinted that they were going to combine the two regions, Unova and Kalos, into one. So I don't know. I'm really torn. I love Gen 5. I love Gen 2. I think that both of those are way better settings for a Legends game. I know that Kalos has the whole thing with the Great War or whatever that was, which would certainly be a dark place for Pokemon to take their game, which I guess is good for everybody that wants Pokemon to be gritty and serious. All you Pal World players, maybe you will actually get to shoot Pokemon with guns in the new one. But there was so much lore from Johto and Unova, and really almost any region that isn't Kalos or the what was it, Alola, the whatever Gen 7 was. Those to me are two of the weakest regions for lore, comparatively speaking. And I mean, my gosh, the lore alone available in Gen 3 we already have Primal Groudon and Kyogre, but we never got a Primal Rayquaza. I don't know. I mean, part of me, I give them credit because they totally swerved us. I don't think anyone went into this presentation thinking, hey, we're going to get Legends Kalos. But I think part of that is possibly with the reason that no one was asking for that. To be fair, no one asked for Legends Arceus, and it ended up being one of the best Pokemon games ever made, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of other people. But so I love that game. I think if they find a way to turn this into full open world Legends, That would be great. I think one of the only weak points of Arceus was having to go back to the hub city every single time you wanted to go to a new region or new part of the map. So if you can explore the map freely, that could be really cool. Um, look, I love Pokemon, so obviously I'm gonna buy the game either way. Because especially if they're using a lot of the same ideas they did in the first Legends game, which I put, you know, an unhealthy amount of hours into. Uh, I'm in. I like a lot of those mechanics. I think that was some of the most inspired gameplay that Pokemon companies ever come up with. And everybody wanted the Legends games to come back. They really didn't want it to be a one-off. They wanted this to become a new series, which is good that they're continuing it because I think Pokemon definitely did need a secondary series so that they aren't always boxed into a new generation every few years, coming up with 100 new Pokemon and the Pokedex getting ridiculously gigantic. It was interesting if this was a delayed announcement because they didn't show anything really. I mean, they showed Pikachu running around, which Pikachu's the mascot, Pokemon Day. I get it. But they when they revealed Legends Arceus, they showed the starters. I'm pretty sure they showed, just a little bit more hinting towards what we might be getting ourselves into in the story, and that isn't quite the case from this trailer. So I'm a little curious if this was affected by the delay of the Nintendo Switch, the new one that's coming up soon, sometime next year. It's supposed to be out this year. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Um, so maybe that was an impact, and or maybe it's correlated. Maybe they delayed. A lot of devs were having to delay their games, and they know what a moneymaker Pokemon is, so they delayed the whole system just because the Pokemon game wasn't going to be ready in time. And yeah, so as it stands right now, we are not getting a Pokemon game this year. That could change. There is I would still say, high probability that they do another direct to announce the remakes for Gen 5 and release those in November and kind of follow a similar, when they did the Gen 4 remakes in November or October or something, and then released Arceus in January. There's a very good chance that's what they could be doing. Looking even further down the line, I hope we get more DLC for this Legends game than we did for the first one, which seemed like it was ripe with DLC opportunities, and we only got one additional bit of content, and that was it. It was good content, but it was like, damn, there was so much more you could have done. So I'm interested to see where this goes. I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a little disappointed that it's not Legends Unova or Legends Johto, because those two regions to me seem much more deserving of the Legends treatment, or more you could do a lot more with those, especially with the Suicune Entei and Raikou and the fire and the tower and Ho-Oh resurrecting. There's so much I wanted to see, but it's not what's happening. Doesn't mean that it can't still happen. But coming up next is Legends Z.